work kind of as a board so that we can collaborate and work together as PTAs, and so I am over those 7 schools. And so we like to do at least one legislative event every year. Last year we did the school board elections, and this year we're doing the city council, and we're doing it this year in conjunction with the American Fork Youth Council. And so they will be doing our timing and our moderatings. We've got moderators here and timers up front, so we'd like to thank them for working with us on that. Let's go through kind of how the night's going to go. We want to welcome the candidates, and I'll just mention them individually even though their names are in front of them. We've got Councilman Brad Frost, Councilman Robert Shelton, we've got Mr. Kevin Barnes, and Mr. Alan Simpson. So we've got 4 candidates, and just to refresh your memories, 3 spots on the city council this year. So you'll be choosing 3 new city councilmen. Hey, and we appreciate them being here, not only being here, but being willing to serve and run. Takes a lot of time from their families, and we appreciate them donating that time to our city. So thanks for tonight and for serving. We will, let's see, we've also got question screeners. Our question screeners tonight are Brian Rollins and David Rodeback, and we put a spot up front if you want to write questions. Halfway through the night we'll be taking those questions. We'll start with some general questions, and we also had some questions that were submitted online, and then we'll go to the questions that were submitted tonight, kind of halfway through the evening. So if you would like to submit a question, please do that before we do the break. Okay, so we will first do the Pledge of Allegiance really quick, and then I will go through how the schedule's going to go. So if you'd rise and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag's right at the door. There's a little one here, but there's a bigger one at the back door. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, for a quick bit of business for our candidates, as far as timing. So one of the timers will hold up a sign warning the speaker that you have 15 seconds remaining. And then, or are you doing 30? Doing 30, and then 15, and then 5. And then when the time's up, they'll actually just say time for you to help you. 10? Oh, 10 also. Okay. And then they'll say time, and then the moderators will basically start talking over top of you. So that's how that will go.
Really quick, how do we submit a question? I thought you said there's a table.
By the front door, right at the front door,
Oh,
sorry.
Great, no problem, thanks.
Yeah, there should be pencils and paper there. Okay, so that's how timing will work, so everybody's familiar. And then I'll tell you the basic schedule. The first segment is questions which we prepared in advance, and most of those were sent to the candidates on Monday. They're just 4 general questions about serving. The second segment will be questions which were submitted online, and those have already been prepared. The third segment will be questions submitted by the audience, and we'll take a couple of minutes to gather those when it's time, so about 2 minutes to bring those over. And we'll start with the online ones so we can go ahead and get started, and then they'll start with the questions that are in the box. And the fourth segment will have each candidate asking a single question of the other candidates. So one question that all the other 3 candidates answer. So not individual questions, but one question for all of the other candidates. And at 8:30, we'll have each candidate make a 1-minute closing statement. And then just a tip for something for the audience, please don't applaud until after the second segment. So when we say we're going to go to the breaks, we won't applaud after answers or after questions or anything like that. And then we'll just applaud after the first segment's over, and then at the end of the night after closing statements. So that helps us just get through all of our questions if you'll just hold your applause for those 2 times. So, and then if you want to comment on social media during or after the debate, we invite you to use the hashtag AF election. So if you'd like to share with your neighbors and friends who couldn't be here, we'd appreciate that so that more people can be informed for the election. So I'll turn it over now to the moderators for our first question. And we drew lots for the candidates as far as where they're sitting and the order that the questions are coming in.
All right, the first question is, who are you and why do you want to be on the American Fork City Council? 1 minute each. Mr. Frost, here first.
My name is Brad Frost, as I said. I'm a lifelong resident of American Fork. My family has been born and raised here. That's a little bit about who I am. Why do I want to be on the City Council? Well, I'm continuing my service, I guess. I've always felt like, for me, I've tried to give back to wherever it is, whether I'm coaching in a church, in my family, And I just had a wild hair one day to think I could give back to my community through public service, and so I put my hat in the ring, and that was 4 years ago, and we were successful. And I've had a lot of fun. I feel like I've learned a lot of things. I've learned and met new people, learned a lot of knowledge and methods of the city. It's a very complex organization, the city is, when you're thinking of public safety down to a library, to a rec center, and there's a lot of moving parts. And so I want to continue to serve and have a few projects, Memorial Garden being one of them, I'd like to see to completion. So that's why I'm here.
My name is Rob Shelton. I also am currently on the city council and wanted to be able to continue the good work that I think that we've been able to do over the last 4 years. One of my main reasons for running 4 years ago really came down to finances. That's what my background is a degree in finance, and that's what I do for a profession. And I kind of saw the course that we were on as a city and thought there were some things that we could be able to do to change that course. One thing that's probably been a bigger surprise to me over the last 4 years, one of those lessons you'll learn, is how hard it is to get change in the city. You're only 1 of 5 votes, so even though you think you can come in and change the world because you get elected, then you have to really get to work and work with other people and try to convince others and find a good working relationship. And I'm grateful to have had that ability with fellow council members because we have been able to come in and look at where we need to be able to cut some costs and be able to reallocate some resources to what I think would be more important. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Good evening and thanks for coming. My name is Kevin Barnes. We have lived in American Fork since 1979. My wife and I have raised 6 children, all of whom went to this high school and graduated from this high school. They're all married and on their own now. So life's pretty good for us. The reason I'm running is just to serve. I don't have an axe to grind. I'm not after anybody's throat. I'm not after a particular agenda. I am here to serve the citizens of American Fork. I've been very involved in things in the community over the years, such as the scouting program. Spent a lot of time mostly in scouting and some other areas and stuff like that. And part of what I did when I was doing the scouting was work on citizenship merit badges. And I think it's important that when it's appropriate, we give back to our communities.
I'm Alan Simpson. I bought a house here in American Fork 20 years and 2 months ago, and I've attended city council meetings for 20 years and 2 months because I can't complain if I don't come. And I also know that it's important to see how our city's run. I decided to come and run for office. My specialty deals with risk and finances, equaling insurance and investments. And I saw that my particular view on finances and on responsible dealings with money would be a big help to a lot of the people I dealt with. And that's why I'm here.
Okay, the next question is, what service to the city or other experience makes you feel well qualified to serve on the city council? Mr. Shelton, we'll start with you.
Great, thanks. I've always been involved in giving back to the community from a very young age. I kind of joked that maybe when I was in high school, there was a shortage of coaches for youth soccer leagues, and so I volunteered, and that was kind of a really fun experience to be able to work with some people there. But probably I think that what's qualified me more for the city council is I served on the Board of Adjustments for the city shortly after I turned age 21, and I served on there for quite a while and got to understand a lot about the process in the city and things that I think that needed to be able to be changed. I also currently sit on a lot of different boards that are out there. Utah Valley Estate Planning Council, the Library Board, the Chamber of Commerce for the city, the Utah Valley Policy Committee. You guys all have it in front of you. You can be able to look at some of those qualifications. And I also believe my background in finance also gives me some experience there as well.
I think my experience of just being a citizen is one of the things that I have to offer, of having lived here and having been involved As I mentioned, I've done a lot of work with the Scouts and served there and helped them learn about citizenship, learn about government, how it works and what it does. I am a self-employed businessman and have been now for about 17 years. I know what it's like to try and run a business. And the experiences that I've had just in living and going through some of the things that a community does, as well as the members of that community, I think give me some experience and understanding of what's going on. Of our 6 children that are, 5 of them live here really close. And I had one other thought. Oh, the Planning Commission. I have served publicly on the Planning Commission, so I understand what some of those issues are that come before the City Council.
Again, most of the time that I've lived in the city, I've stayed low-key. I've always volunteered and been there when people need little things. And then I got involved with my political party, and I saw growing needs where we need people with an understanding of what our government was like. And I've been attending, again, city council meetings for 20 years, and I started volunteering more. I'm actually on the Arts Council, and I volunteer at the library. And this is something where I saw my particular skills could be really valuable to our city.
You know, I think for me, as I think about what do I have to offer, I have a desire. I have a desire to see American Fork prosper and flourish financially. I care deeply about their image and the perception of people and how they live and where they live. I watch the paper. If I see American Fork on there in any way, I take close note of it because I want to see what others think of American Fork. So I think it's important that we have a good image, and so I work very hard to make sure that that is the case. I think I'm a good listener. I try to listen to people, and then I go to work for them. And sometimes they're very small issues. Sometimes they're very big issues. It can go from anything from a problem with their neighbor to what I would say right now is currently we're trying to save an entire canyon that bears our name. And so I roll up my sleeves and I go to work. I'm kind of I feel like I'm a blue-collar guy. I run a business, but I am blue-collar, and I'm proud of that. So thank you.
All right, the next question is, lots of candidates and officials say they're for lower taxes, but what is the proper level of city taxes for residents? Is it more or less than we're presently taxed, or about the same? Mr. Barnes, here first.
It depends on what the people of the community want, I think, ultimately. And 2 years ago, the citizens of this community said they didn't want any more taxes to pay for roads. So with that said, the city council has a responsibility to work within that budget. As I've been running, I've had a number of people tell me they regret that vote. They would much rather be paying a little more money and have better roads. City, small city, community government is about things like that. How do you serve, how do you take care of the basic needs of things like fire, police, water, sewer, roads, etc. And right now, some people will say we're taxed too much. Some people will say we're taxed too little. And I think it's a personal opinion. I think we're about right for what we get.
To answer the second part first, we do have enough money. Our budget has, in the past 2 years, has increased $10 million. Now remember, part of that, or if you didn't know, part of that, I think 2.5 came from a grant, but the state forbids us from spending more than we receive. So we have enough money. Our roads, which I've heard a lot about, have actually had a cut in $450 million in this past year. So the question comes, what if we're making $10 million more, where is that money going? The roads haven't been as much of a priority as they ought to be, but we are taxed. We are taxed at a fair amount right
I think if I had 1 minute, which I do, to say what I feel about taxes, I could tell you a lens that I look through. About 3 years ago, I had a gentleman that called me, wanted me to come to his house, an older gentleman. I went over and he told me how he was on a fixed income. He was disabled. There was no way he was ever going to make any more money. And he implored me about any tax increase. And so I think of him often. And then I think too of and I can just say mine or yours or your grandkids. Because then we have this young generation that if we postpone investment into our city, then we are really incurring debt upon the next generation. So taxes are a necessary evil. I could just say this, that I think there's a proper balance. And we tried to strike that in the last 4 years to where we're investing in the city as we go, but we're being very careful. As a businessman, I just look for waste. And if I see it, boy, they know about it. And if you see it, let me know about it.
There's been a lot of talk about budgets. Just to set the record straight, we didn't cut $450 million last year because our budget's only $59 million. So we couldn't cut $450 million out of a $59 million budget. But real quick, I appreciate people like Brad that I get to work with on a regular basis on the city council, because what we have done over the last 3 years is made cuts that have saved the city $1.8 million, and being able to look at those and saying, where can we redeploy those resources to be able to be at? Some will contend that roads are the only priority in the city, and this is a tough job. It's a tough seat to be able to be in, and some of the best advice I ever had is maybe we ought to rotate. Every resident has to have a certain time on the city council so they'll get a chance to see it. But to give you an idea, part of that $1.8 million, we went out and hired 2 new detectives who do nothing but fight drugs. And some people say we don't have a drug problem inside American Fork, but we do. And I've got those results and can talk to you more about that. But that's what we need to do, is look for ways we can continue to save and be more efficient with the resources we have.
Thank you. This concludes our first segment.
In this second segment, we have questions submitted online by city residents. You each have 1 minute to answer.
Okay, first, Mr. Barnes, what would you cut in the current budget to increase the road?
To be honest with you, I haven't studied the budget to the extent where I know what can be cut. I've heard a lot of opinions, and the numbers that I've seen are so small that they won't make any real impact in it. I think one of the things that a city council person needs to do is get closer to the budget, the people that work for the city, and see what's going on, and then make a decision. I'm not prepared right now to say, we're gonna cut this and this and this if I get my way, because I haven't seen the areas where there's a lot of waste, and there are differences of opinion, and that's what we're talking about, is people living together in a community and reaching a consensus and opinion of where that money needs to be spent.
The way, and I apologize, that was 450,000, which Rob probably suspected. I would love to cut $450 million from the budget. I'm sure with every one of you. The way our budgets are made, we have a very able city manager, and he prepares a budget, and then it's brought before our city council, who can amend it if they want, and then they approve it. But there are many pieces, and so to say one thing could be taken out to pay for the roads is kind of hard, because there are pieces to many things. So to decide that, one would have to look at the budget as it was presented by the city manager and say, well, this is a higher priority than the roads, or this isn't. And so I'm not able to give you a specific answers to the pieces that I would take out to pay for the roads.
You know, I'll speak to the process of our budget, and that is it's a zero-based budget. Every department head does not default to what they had last year, and then let's just see what you need, what more do you need. It is, let's start from zero. And it's a very thorough process that takes months and months and months. And so what would I cut? I think I might have to say I'm guilty of, I probably wouldn't cut anything because I would have already. I've been in that position as an incumbent. But I will say this, that every dollar that we can, we look at it objectively, and we know of our priorities. Our top priority as a council has been infrastructure. Infrastructure is holistic. It's not just roads. It's everything that's underneath them. It's the things you don't see. It's the very water that you drink. And it's a very expensive process when you start to undertake those things. And so I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just saying that there are high prices to that, and we look for every penny, and we will defer those savings to infrastructure. I will.
I think the first place that I'd probably start is in our phone bill. The city pays a lot, and we have a very antiquated phone system. For some city employees, we pay for them to have a landline and a cell phone, which I think is paying for two things. And a lot of people nowadays just use a cell phone. I've been working for 3 years trying to be able to find a solution. I think I found that, got very close and presented that to the city administrator, and look forward to hopefully bringing that to the council here pretty soon, but that would cut our phone bill in half. The other thing that I think I'd take a look at is how we accept credit card payments. We spend a lot of money by accepting city bills by credit cards, but we don't charge a convenience fee. And that's a lot of money that goes out because we absorb that convenience fee. And so that's something we need to talk about as a community. If we want to have the convenience of paying our bill, I mean, that's the tune of over $80,000 a year just in convenience fees that we're soaking up. The big part of that's just because we accept American Express, maybe we just accept Visa. But this is what you're going to get from someone like myself. I'm going to be very analytical, roll up my sleeves, look into the budget, and see what we can be able to cut and add to that $1.8 million.
Okay. First, Mr. Simpson, what will you do to help fix our neglected streets and sidewalks, especially in the older parts of the city?
To fix the neglected streets and sidewalks requires money. And going back to zero-based budgeting, you have a certain amount of money you can spend. And at zero-based, you go back and, like Brad said, you start over. You decide what the priorities are. And you take the priorities, and once you reach the bottom, anything below there doesn't get money spent on it. Our roads are kind of divided into three groups. One, new. I wish I knew where those were. We have some in good condition, some in fair condition, and some that are beyond hope. And we are going to have to spend some money that we haven't spent so far to bring our roads up to where we can maintain them. Maintenance is the best place for them to be because they can be maintained at a relatively low cost and keep them going for decades. So we have to decide which roads have the high priority, how much money we're willing to spend, and we are going to have to spend.
You know, the road bond that we had a couple of years ago, I think it gave real clear direction that the residents, I think about a 60-40 margin, did not want to do a tax increase for the roads. Some interpreted that as the roads are okay. Some, I've been told that. I've never really accepted that as probably what the residents were saying. They just did not want to borrow money for the roads. And so you pay as you go. And so we have implemented that process, the pay as you go. I think it's going to take a lot of patience and understanding of how roads work and how one on 300 North, for instance, is a collector road, how it might get more attention than a little cul-de-sac because it's much cheaper to resurface and maintain that road, and everybody uses it. And so we look within, and a really quick example too is we do more with less. We, as a council, passed for a new cemetery. We looked at acquiring property. We actually ended up taking a park. And people didn't like that, but it was more with less, and that was the direction we had.
I think, again, you gotta roll up your sleeve and look for whatever options and solutions are available. So one thing we did this last year is we went in and we bought a street paver with the city of Lehigh and shared that cost. That's gonna pay for itself within the first year from the savings we're gonna have from doing that in-house. 980 North is one where we're taking that in-house and being able to do it. We also have to relook at our maintenance program, and that's one thing I've asked our street crews and I've really hammered Public Works on. And it's not popular, but you've probably heard of the chip seal. They used to come in and put tar down and then put chips on top of it. It's cheaper, and I actually think, in my personal opinion, it's more efficient than the micro resurfacing that they've been doing in the city. That's just from the research and study that I've done. on finding ways that we can be able to make that dollar go as far as we possibly can. And the reason we that is get the best bang for the buck and see how to be most efficient.
It's tough when you get a question like that, and you're the fourth one, because basically everything has been said. We have to keep repairing the roads and maintaining the roads, as well as everything else the city does in perspective. And right now, a lot of people feel that we've got the worst roads in the world. Hopefully you drive in some other cities. I've talked to people in other cities, and guess what they think? The same thing. We've got problems with the roads, there's no question about it, but we've got other things in the city that need to be taken care of. Police and fire and water and sewer and all these other things. And it really ultimately boils down to priority, as has been said. You have so much money, you make decisions on how to spend it, just like you do on your personal budget.
All right, the next question is, Lehigh is doing a great job of attracting major new businesses. How can American Fork do better? And Mr. Shelton, we'll start with you.
Thanks. Glad to report we're actually getting some businesses to relocate out of Lehigh, because I've come to find out that isn't exactly the greatest spot to be. Lehigh boomed really quick, and they got some serious traffic issues there, and where we've done a lot better planning, we've been able to get other businesses that have been there to relocate and look here in American Fork. So I think we have a very competitive advantage. We also just recently got Ken Garf Chevy to be able to stay here within the city and do a big expansion as well, and they were looking at some property in Lehigh. So sometimes it looks like there's big buildings going up, but I think there's a lot going on in American Fork on the south and or west side of town as you may look at it, that we're just not aware of. We're looking at a 450-acre development possibly. This last council meeting, we're going to have a joint work session on it. So there is a lot of great economic activities taking place right now. And I think we are very competitive with Lehigh.
I hear a lot of talk about those beautiful big buildings along the freeway in Lehigh. Those buildings generate property tax. The businesses that have been coming to American Fork generate sales tax. Sales tax is great money for the city. It actually benefits, in my opinion, the city better than property tax does because of the way that money's divided out. My understanding is that Doug Smith, 80% of the cars that are sold by Doug Smith are sold to people that don't live in American Fork. And that's wonderful because they pay the sales tax and we get the benefit of it. And I think we're attracting the appropriate kinds of businesses as we build it out on the meadows and things like that.
I agree that we have a lot of good businesses here. Our car dealerships bring in a lot of sales tax. We will have opportunities to bring in other things. I bet everyone here has a Costco card, and you see how much sales tax that generates for Lehigh. As Rob said, we're going to have opportunities to bring these in. We have space for them. Some of the incentives other cities have used to bring in and to attract other businesses is taxes. They have slightly lower taxes. I've actually talked to people I talked to a lady who said her son actually noticed that in a neighboring city, that just what he normally bought was about 10 or 15 cents less on the dollar. And so he would shop there. I think it was a Walmart between here and Orem. But we have the opportunity, and we're attracting a lot of businesses. And this American Fork is a great city to live in.
I've never really felt like we're competing with Lehigh, and I don't think that was really the intent of the question, but maybe a little bit. But I think I'm okay with them prospering at the point of the mountain. We are prospering. We have a great advantage by virtue of our location. I think American Fork does, and businesses are coming. There's a great base that we've had here for a long time, and it is going to expand. We have 300 jobs coming down by the old Cow Ranch store, the Walmart, the Young Family Oil, but But so if a business, and this is what I've learned, I actually went to a 2-day seminar on it. They are looking for a model. CVS Pharmacy saw a model in American Fork, and so they have come here to expand. They are beholden to their shareholders, and if they'll find the ground and they can produce the revenue, they will expand. Starbucks is doing it, and others are coming, and we know that because American Fork is a great model.
All right, Mr. Frost, we're going to start with you for the next question again. Sorry. Do you support mass transit generally? What can the city do to get bus service to and from our front runner station?
Yes, I support it. I don't use it. Sometimes I feel like I should. I'm supportive of it enough, and in the same hand, I'm somewhat discouraged by the way the UTA manages their funds, and I will say that openly. But the front runner has been a great source of people coming and going. Front runner is full. The parking lot, if you don't, just go down there in the middle of the day, the parking lot is completely full. And so we know front runner is thriving. The bus system is weak. I've been watching it in preparation for this Prop 1 to see how many people are using the buses. Last night I noticed there was 2 on one bus. There was a couple. One bus I thought was empty. So people have got to use it. I know its role, and I support it for people that have to have that, or maybe don't have the circumstances to buy a car. But I think it's going to change the mindset as the population grows. Buses will be needed.
I have to pretty much echo what Brad had said. I sit on a committee right now that is reviewing transportation in American Fork and trying to make sure we're thinking ahead. And by 2040, I-15, with the expansion we're doing right now, will be failing with the population growth that we're expected to have. So where are we going to put another freeway? There's going to become a point where growth becomes so much that mass transit's going to make more and more sense over time. I, too, am not real happy with the way that UT allocates those funds, and quite frankly, I do wish we as a city had an opportunity to help them spend it a little bit wiser, but we don't really have a say in that role as to how to increase bus services. But I'll tell you this, we talk about businesses locating to American Fork. That was one of the #1 requests of Adobe to locate, was it had to be next to a front runner station. And American Fork and Lehigh were competing for that because we did have a front runner station here in American Fork. We have a lot of businesses now, as we've done our transit-oriented development and looking at that want to locate next to that front runner station. It will be an economic hub to us. So we have to look for ways we can efficiently utilize it and do as much as we can encourage UTA to spend their money better.
UTA is an easy target, but I think we're all in agreement. You've seen the studies, you've seen the salaries, you've seen the other things. They are not managing the best that they could, and I think they need to be more accountable. I've never been on a UTA bus. I've never ridden the front runner, so I can't speak from experience. My job necessitates that I have a car, so I can go where I need to go when I need to go. So it's not something that I can do. I'm all in favor of that train when I see it go down the side of the freeway at 5:30 at night, and I'm driving back from Ogden, and it's jam-packed with people. That's great, because that's that many fewer people on the freeway, that many fewer accidents. I don't think American Fork currently is ready for a bus system. I don't think we could justify it. There's not enough people that would use it. So I don't think that's something that we need to look at as a high priority.
I am a regular rider of UTA at the bus in our mass transit system, and it is severely underutilized. And I've talked with people who work with them, or who have worked with them, and I think saying that their finances are poorly managed is one of the understatements. They have an incredible amount of debt. And I think about that as I ride the bus, and many times I'm the only person on the bus. I've even ridden the bus that the county wants to bring an extension down through Provo on, and it's a very, very low ridership. We have, and again, as a bus rider, there's freedom you don't have on a bus. You have to wait. You have to go by their schedule, and it's really hard. And with their incredible amount of debt, should we be supporting them? There's definitely a time in the future where they can be used. Should we be supporting that until that's needed? And I don't think we can afford it.
Mr. Simpson, if you want to stay standing, you're going to start the next question. This is the last question, sorry. All right, please comment on the level of fire protection in the city. Is it adequate? Is there anything more that we should be doing?
The level of fire protection? I don't have any idea. That's something that I would have, fire protection. That's not a question that I can answer. I've worked with our fire department. They even came and to put out my campfire in my backyard that my neighbors called about. But I cannot, and it was not big, I promise. And we offered them marshmallows, and they were really nice, but didn't accept. I've assumed it is because I've spoken with them, because again, I've dealt and talked with them and I'm friends with them. And I'm sorry, so maybe if this is a good question, whoever asked it can get with me and I'll go over and find out.
I would say that I am very comfortable with the level. We have had to kind of change. You've seen the changing of a guard from a part-time volunteer fireman that was a local businessman that carried a pager, and that has kind of phased out, and basically because of the need, and then Obamacare kind of run that as well. Because even to carry a pager, you're an employee and you can't have more than 28 hours. And so I am very comfortable with the level of service that we have currently. I would say that between Councilman Shelton and I, we know of the need of another satellite station that needs to be taking place up on the northwest side of town by the temple. I project that'll happen sometime in the next 5 years as things happen. But fire doubles every, 8 seconds. And if you've ever been in a fire in a burning building, I kind of have had that little experience, and it's true. And you can't get them there fast enough. So I'm comfortable with where it's at, and expect that you'll see smaller little stations surrounding the cities.
One of the great things we did over the last 4 years to make sure we have adequate fire protection, we bought a brand new fire truck. And the reason why is because the current one was made in the 1970s, and the fires, there's a museum for fire trucks, and that's where our old fire truck got retired to, is because no one else wanted it, went to a museum. Recently, and Jenna can attest to this, we tried to cut a fire hose with a pair of Jaws of Life that we had, and it only bent the hose and didn't cut it. And that was the hose that we were using prior to us buying this new fire truck, and they brought out the new ones and it snipped it just perfect. So we do need to stay on top of it. One thing we have done recently, though, to keep costs down is we've signed a contract with Gold Cross. Brad brought up the problems with Obamacare. So now Gold Cross stays inside of our station, and instead of having to call in other people to carry a pager, they're our backup, and we only pay them on the calls they go on.
I'm an insurance agent. I'm going to take a different point of view on this. Those of you that own a home pay for insurance on your home. If you've got a good rating for your fire department, guess what? Your premium is less. So you may think you're saving money sometimes by cutting police or fire or other things, but guess what? You're going to pay for it in a lot more damage to your property if it ever catches on fire, but you're also going to pay more for it in your insurance premiums. What I'm getting to is our city has a good rating on the fire department, and because of that, you get good competitive rates on your homeowner's insurance. And I think that's wonderful, and I think that speaks highly of our city fire department. Even though we're not as large as some of the other cities, we still enjoy the same rating that they do.
Thank you. We will now take 2 minutes to collect the audience's questions and let the candidates relax. Then we'll begin the next segment. But first, please join me in a round of applause for the candidates.